Welcome back, everyone. It looks like some of the first scenes of Marvel's Avengers Doomsday have finally posted online. Some of them I think are fake, some of them I do think are actually real, so I'll try to point out the difference. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. They just started filming the movie, so this is why we're actually starting to get footage in actual scenes. But it looks like a whole bunch of X-Men stuff is going on right now. There was a longer clip that posted a while ago. Somebody actually got some footage of what looks like some huge battle damage happening, and it's believed this is taking place in the X-Men universe near the X-Mansion. So at least it seems like they're working on a lot of X-Men focused stuff right now, because one of the other first big reveals is James Marsden's Cyclops talking to Wong. So a lot of big questions about what's going on during this scene they're working on here. What is Wong doing with the X-Men? A lot of people will point out that it looked like a sling ring that saved Channing Tatum's gambit at the end of Deadpool and Wolverine. Did Wong have something to do with that? There are a couple of reasons they could be together. Wong could be in the X-Men universe if they're filming X-Men related big action scenes, or this could be after the X-Men have come into the MCU, like after an incursion or some event has caused them to collide into the MCU. Because the way that Kevin Feige built the movie is that you have about 5 separate teams, and most of the teams are all getting together to fight against Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom. He is meant to be the actual main villain of the movie, but the way that he enters the film, he thinks that he's saving the multiverse, like he thinks of himself as the hero. According to Kevin Feige, it's the MCU Avengers characters, like the new Avengers team that Sam Wilson puts together eventually, the Thunderbolts characters, which he was still calling the Thunderbolts, like he hadn't started calling them the Dark Avengers or the also New Avengers, because that's also going to be a big part of the actual Thunderbolts movie, so I think he was just trying to avoid spoiling that part of the Thunderbolts movie, because it does have more of a Dark Avengers kind of vibe, like the team will turn into a version of the Dark Avengers. They might just call themselves the New Avengers, though. Either way, you have those two teams. You have the Wakandans, which they treated like a completely separate group all to themselves, basically Black Panther and those characters. I think they're considering Namor to be part of that group of people, because he did say at the end of the Black Panther Wakanda Forever movie that he would be allying with Wakanda and Shuri as Black Panther, but he was really just biding his time so that he could take over the surface world. But at least for now, he is still the ally of Wakanda.
I'll take it from here.
Charles asked for an update.
He referred to the X-Men as the classic X-Men coming from their universe. Then that 5th team is the new Fantastic Four that we're going to meet during the brand new movie coming this summer. They're coming to the MCU as well, probably at the end of their movie. Most of their movie takes place in a completely separate universe as well, too, different from the X-Men universe that they're coming from and different from the MCU. At a certain point, all those teams will coalesce together, work together in a couple of different battlegrounds, Infinity War style, where they sort of divided the different teams up across different places, but all ultimately fighting Doctor Doom, who sort of takes the place of Thanos as the overarching villain of both movies. But because we're in the multiverse saga, we're talking about incursions here. That's sort of the defining event that brings universes together in most cases, unless you're someone like Deadpool, the TVA, who jumps around to different universes, different timelines. There are a couple ways to explain how the X-Men wind up with Wong. Wong could be traveling to this other universe, although the way they've made it seem in the MCU is that it's really hard for characters to do that. Like Doctor Strange couldn't just walk through alternate universes at will. They made it seem really hard for him to do that, especially really hard for Scarlet Witch to do that, which is where America Chavez came in during the plot of that movie, because that's her special ability from the comics, basically traveling through the multiverse like it's no big deal. So the early theory is that it has something to do with an incursion that causes the X-Men universe to collide or overlap with the MCU, which is how all those X-Men wind up in the MCU. Even though it's a multiverse movie, most of the movie is meant to take place inside the core MCU, so I think that just means that most of the people will eventually wind up in the MCU, either through collisions like incursions, or using some of the powers that people have, some of the technology like Reed Richards has to travel the multiverse. But because of the whole time runs out part of this storyline, we're really talking about incursions here. You also remember that Wong is a Sorcerer Supreme, so he would be dealing with big threats to this dimension, this universe, this timeline, which are the incursions. He would be very concerned with a whole other group of people, a whole other superpowered team coming from another universe. Are they going to threaten us? Should we work with them? Are they going to be friends?
I'll do you one better.
Why is Gamora?
You can kind of see during big movies like this where they see this other superpower team show up and treat them like a threat at first until eventually they work out their differences. The same way it happened during Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, where you run into another team like Iron Man running into the Guardians of the Galaxy where they briefly, very briefly fought each other until they teamed up. It'll be kind of the same vibe with the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, all these other teams coming together. Next real big image is Magneto in classic Magneto's suit talking to James Marsden with his Cyclops glasses on, but not his full suit. There are a lot of people that actually thought that this image is fake, but I do think that we will see them together on screen because we know that Ian McKellen is coming back as a version of Magneto. But the thing is that when this picture posted, some other people pointed out that Ian McKellen was also spotted nearby where they're filming Avengers Doomsday, but he had a full beard on. So he obviously doesn't have a beard during this picture, meaning that this might be doctored. Just because of that Marvel's post-credit scene with the newer-looking motion capture version of Kelsey Grammer's bees, I think that they're trying to go for a more comic book accurate vibe with this version of the classic X-Men, so the suits that they show up in the movie will also probably be more comic book accurate. We joke a lot about fan service. Fan service, big part of Marvel movies. Like you go to see the thing that you always wanted to see your entire life that they've never done before. In a big part of the X-Men movies, particularly those classic X-Men movies, where the Bryan Singer and the studio at the time were deathly afraid of doing comic book accurate stuff. Thus, the black suits. Kevin Feige got his stripes on this movie as an associate producer. Like it was one of the first big movies that he worked on when he started in Hollywood. He was really low on the totem pole, like he was part of the meetings, he was one of the studio guys, but he wasn't powerful enough to actually have a say in what they were doing with the movies at the time. But he was like the guy on set that would secretly run comic books to all the different actors because most of the actors weren't familiar with the comics and the characters that they were playing, particularly Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. He didn't know anything about the comics when he became Wolverine. Kevin Feige said at the time the reason why they went with the black suits, why they had that joke about wearing yellow spandex in the movie itself, why they made fun of that, was because one Bryan Singer hated the comics.
He's actually wearing a costume like he's not embarrassed to be in a superhero movie for once.
But also you have to think about what was happening in Hollywood at the time they released that first X-Men movie in 2000. We had just gotten the Matrix movie, and what happened in the Matrix movie, it made black trench coats super popular. If you don't remember back during that era or you weren't born yet, right after that movie came out, that look just became super popular. So naturally, because the movie made so much money, the people that were making the X-Men movie at Fox were like, why don't we put them in black leather like the Matrix movie? The Matrix movie made so much money, maybe that'll help our X-Men movie also make more money if we make them look like they were in the Matrix movie. Kevin Feige joked that was literally the logic of the studio executives at the time at Fox. Now we've gotten to the point where, say like Deadpool, for example, in Deadpool and Wolverine makes the joke about Wolverine finally wearing the yellow costume because, as he joked during the movie, he's wearing the suit now as if he's not afraid of the comics anymore. Metaphorically and literally, the actors and the executives are not afraid of looking like they're in an actual comic book movie. All because they were kind of afraid of it back when they were making those original X-Men movies, thus the fact that it took this long to put Wolverine in a yellow suit like the comics. So it just feels like they're going to continue with the vibe that we got during Deadpool and Wolverine, with everything just looking more comic book accurate, which I think everybody's going to be generally happy with, although I'm not expecting it to look exactly like some of the classic comic book designs. For example, the Wolverine costume is a little bit different from his classic yellow suit from the comics. You also remember there were a lot of fake leaks that came out when Deadpool and Wolverine was being filmed and we started to get footage from behind the scenes. This image of Cyclops in a comic book accurate suit was meant to be 100% fake, like he was nowhere ever in any of these scenes here on The Void. But you kind of get the idea. I'm actually expecting James Marsden to show up in the movie in a suit that's kind of like this. X-Men showing up in live action looking a little bit more like they do during X-Men 97. I've seen a lot of questions about what's going on with Doctor Strange 3. Have they canceled that movie? Are they still making it? Is it still coming out before Avengers Secret Wars? I think they're still trying to make it right now, like it hasn't officially been canceled. We will see if it actually winds up getting made though. Generally, Marvel is making a beeline to try and get to Avengers Secret Wars as fast as possible. So, like, they're filming Secret Wars and Doomsday back to back because they're still trying to release them 1 year right after the other, just like Infinity War and Endgame. That is like their sole focus right now. But there are like a couple other things going on. Spider-Man 4, Brand New Day. There's a couple other things going on, like a couple movies they announced that are happening right after Secret Wars.
Who knows?
Whoever tickles your fancy.
Anybody in the Marvel bag could show up in this movie.
There's still an untitled Marvel movie that's supposed to be released February 2026, right before Avengers Doomsday. We'll see what that winds up being, or they wind up changing that date or canceling that date. There's an untitled Marvel movie that's supposed to release in November 6, 2026, after Spider-Man 4 Brand New Day, but before Avengers Secret Wars. That could also wind up being Doctor Strange 3. But if they don't start filming that movie really soon, it's going to be really, really hard for them to get that out in a timely manner and do a good job without killing all the visual effects people to try and get them to finish faster. So there's just a couple options for what those other untitled movies are in the middle of Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars stuff. We'll see what those wind up being. We actually did find out about Black Panther 3, though. That's not supposed to come out till after Secret Wars, and it's supposed to be the untitled Marvel movie that they're releasing February 18th, 2028. So basically like Valentine's Day weekend, February 2028, the year after Secret Wars. Ryan Coogler was just talking about that recently, like he confirmed that Denzel Washington is going to be in the movie. It's believed that he's going to be a villain from the comics, but it's meant to be a one-off role, like he's not going to be showing up for 10 more Marvel movies after this. I've already done a couple videos about that, so I'll post links in the description below. We also got all those first look images with the other adult version of T'Challa Black Panther. We will see what they wind up doing with that during Secret Wars, because it still seems like they plan on aging up that T'Challa Jr. version, like the son of T'Challa, to become the new Black Panther at some point, and they'll just use the excuse of Secret Wars to age him up to adult much faster. But I am expecting for Black Panther 3 to be like the last Shuri Black Panther movie, and at some point towards the end of that movie, she'll probably pass the mantle to like this next T'Challa Black Panther, whoever that winds up being. So if it wasn't clear, through Avengers Doomsday, Shuri will still be Black Panther, the only Black Panther.
But she will not be joining us today.
When we get to Avengers Secret Wars, though, there might be a multiverse Black Panther or a big twist on Black Panther. So just don't be surprised if you see a couple Black Panther surprises in that movie, just because it's such a big multiverse movie with other versions of characters showing up. But because they literally just started filming the movie, I would not be surprised if we get more first looks, more scenes from Avengers Doomsday really, really soon. Whatever winds up coming out, of course, I will do videos about it. If you have any big questions or any Easter eggs you spotted in the footage that has come out already, just let me know in the comments below, and I'll try to add them to my future bonus videos. Not to be forgotten, we also have the Daredevil finale coming up this week too, so be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss that. Everybody click here to learn all about what's going on during Black Panther 3, and click here for that Avengers Doomsday trailer video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.